This is a testimony about my life, the good and the bad. People have a tendency to think that life has always been good to you because they see your now. They see it's all good and they assume that things have always been good for you. But they don't know your win, your struggles, or your heartache or your pain. Then there are those that will still judge you based off your past, no matter how much your life has changed for the better. But to be honest, this isn't about them, so I won't spend too much time on that. Regardless of how I may be viewed, the most important thing is how I view me. And because I know who I am and whose I am, no one can tell me who I'm not. I'm not that minister that's stuck on image or public perception. That's not my goal. But my goal is to be transparent about the parts of my life that I feel would help someone else who may be out there struggling. This is about doing the will of my Father, and I realize that what I've been through, God allowed me to go through it for a purpose. What you are about to hear are the things that molded me into who I am. You see the message, but I only have a message because I learned through my mess, and God did the rest. I'm Minister Slugger, and welcome to my life. 504 Fall Street is special to me because this is the place that developed me into who I am today. A lot of people like to talk about the good things that go on in our life while omitting the negative. I'm not saying that we should glorify the negative, but at the same time, it's the negatives that develops the picture. Without me fighting those demons, without me having those trials and those tribulations, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. This is where God developed me. This is where God sharpened me at through the pains and the struggles of my life. And hopefully through the pains and the struggles of my life, it will encourage you to let you know that if I made it, you can make it as well.
I'm Elaine Wyman. I taught Slugger either 10th or 11th grade English at Marlin High School back in the 1990s.
I'm Bobby Melton. I am an English teacher, and I taught Slugger in both English and in French. What I remember about Slugger as a student is not an academic memory, but it was his distinct walk. Somehow, I knew him by that walk, and he still has that walk. I can pick him out from a crowd of, I don't know how many going down the streets.
Occasion that comes to my mind when I think about Slugger must have happened after the talent show that we put on his senior year of high school. My daughter came and was the MC for the event, and she had a little part-time job working at the radio station in Bryan, Texas. Mm-hmm. And after the talent show, I was driving home, and I saw Slugger walking down the street, and just something said stop. And I did, and here we are on the side of the road, and Slugger's telling me about what he wishes that he could accomplish in life, but he doesn't see a path clear to doing it. And we came up with the plan that after graduation, he would go to Bryan, and Jamil, my daughter, would help him to get a job at the radio station there.
Well, on the day when I think he may have been, in a sense, at his lowest point, it was said that he had taken some pills. And of course, his friends, knowing what he had done, would be up in arms about it and excited. But as for me, I don't know. I can't remember the real details, but I remember thinking that, if you really wanted to do away with yourself, you would do it. Otherwise, you put yourself in a situation where somebody, will come to help you. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I didn't actually believe that he had got to the point of that hopeless state where there's just no way, and just let me forget about everybody else and just be done with it. Mm-hmm. So I knew it was a cry for help, and I'm very glad that he did get the help that he needed.
I do remember Slugger would come to my room after school and just sit just sit in the classroom. We would talk a little bit sometimes, but sometimes it would just be there in each other's presence. And I knew that Slugger had some personal things going on. I didn't know all of the details of it. I knew that he was having to deal with some pretty grown-up kind of issues, and here he is just a 10th grader. So I guess that just kind of colored how I felt about him, because I know, when you're a teenager, you have the physical attributes of an adult. You don't have the mind, and you don't have the life skills that would prepare you to cope successfully with those problems. So my heart went out to him because I knew the position he was in. An elderly relative was living with us, and she had been in professional counseling. And while I didn't feel like it had done that much to help her with her situation, I was very aware of the services that a place like DePaul had to offer. And so when I found out that you were, or when it occurred to me that you might not be able to pull out of whatever this is by yourself, it was just uppermost in my mind that, well, maybe somebody at a professional counseling service could help.
I could sympathize with him in going through that. He needed help, and he was crying for help. Somebody, please come and help me, because I don't know what to do with it.
When he went to the DePaul Center, it kind of gave me some relief, because I knew that he wouldn't be able to do any physical harm to himself. And I really felt like that, maybe things would kind of get back on track for him.
In '95, I was a junior in high school, and this was during the time that my life had started getting off track, and me and this girl had got into it in class, and she said something about my mama, and I got upset, and I grabbed the stapler object that was on the teacher's desk, and I hit her with it. And from that incident, I was suspended. I was upset, with the principal, because I thought that, it was unfair that I was the only one that got in trouble when she had provoked me. And so I was in a rage, walking up and down the halls of the high school saying, man, I'll blow this MF up. Well, I didn't really mean it at the time. I was just saying it out of anger. Well, later on that night, me and a friend, we was riding around drinking 40 ounces of Old English. So we riding around and we drinking, and we're talking about our problems, and I was telling him how angry I was at the school for the decision they had made that day. So from that, we made the decision that we was gonna go and burn the school up. We went and got a gas can, parked the car, walked around the backside of the school, when one of the guys that was with us broke out the back glass to the gym door. Something in my mind clicked and was like, man, what are you doing? You could see flames shooting from the backside of the school. And I just remember thinking to myself at that time, man, you done really done it this time. And the thought of going to prison, I'm telling you, man, it really sent thoughts of suicide through my mind. If it was a time that I really thought about suicide, that was the time. Judge Stem, at the time of the 82nd Judicial Court, I'll never forget that man as long as I live. And that's why to this day, Judge Stem and we have a great relationship. He showed mercy on us. We could have, I think the arson charge at that time carried a sentence of, and I could be wrong, I think it was anywhere from 2 to 20 years in the state penitentiary.
I wasn't around per se. I was back at school, and he had kind of started hanging with a different crowd of people. And even before it even hit the fan and before he got brought in, he had told me what they had done to set the school on fire. And I couldn't believe it. And I said, man, like, what would possess you to set the school on fire, and then you driving your car with the gas can in the back of your car? I told him, man, what are you thinking about? And it was just, when he told me initially, I did not believe him until the very next day when they said that the fire truck had to come out and put the school down. It's really hard to say. I'm trying to say it. when you love somebody like a brother, you know, you don't want them to hurt themselves, you know, I can really go back and talk about a whole lot, but it's, you know, you don't want to hurt yourself, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, I love him just like a brother, man. He was a brother to my brothers and brother to me, and I definitely did not want him to hurt himself. You know, after a while, you know, you try to have a conversation with him, and, you know, I could talk to him for that day, and he'll be good for 2 days, and then that third day, he'll be back in that same position, want to take pills and do crazy stuff, man. Just get in his damn car and just take off with a damn big-ass bottle of liquor, so I'm doing crazy stuff. You know, but, you know, I stayed in there with him because he stayed in there in the trenches with me.
About 6.5 years into finishing up my probation for the arson charge, I catch another case in Waller County.
I'm Matthew Ford. I'm one of Slugger's best friends. We left Houston and headed back home, and we got a shock of our life coming through Waller County. You know, we got pulled over, and the police, you know, came up to the car, asked for lights and stuff, and he just kept shining his light in there, looking at us, and then looking over, you know, at Slugger, shining his light in the backseat. There's 3 of us in the car, you know, 4 o'clock in the morning, y'all riding, leaving Houston. What could y'all be up to? But no good. He got us all out the car, and he got us at the back of the car, and he going through searching us and everything, and he just kept messing with Slugger. Like, what's wrong with him? You know, so he was hard on Slugger, and then so he searched the car, and I think he found some, you know, some weed and then some syrup. You know, so he arrested us. So he put us in handcuffs, put us in the car. He put Slugger in the car and still had me back there. And then he's looking through the back window, and Slugger leaning so hard, he leaning on you know, in the back of the police car, they got the part that separates you from the front of the car. He was just shaking his head like, look at him. He can't, you know, he can't even sit up, but. So they took us to jail that night, you know. We stayed in there overnight and bonded out the next day.
My name is Sarah Antis. I was the probation officer who supervised George Strickland back in, I believe it started in 1998, but it's been some years ago. What I remember first off about George is he was really young, just barely an adult, and he had been placed on probation for a felony offense, so he was always polite and courteous. George always reported. But he did have a serious demeanor about him. You know, like he just had a lot on his mind. I think probably the probation itself was a big stressor for George at the time. When I learned about George's second offense, I can't deny I was really disappointed. Possession of controlled substance. It sounded a lot worse than what it ended up being when I got a chance to read the offense. But I just, you know, thought about how this was going to affect George's life, and, you know, that it had the potential to have his probation revoked, and I just thought George had too much potential to really, you know, too young to be, you know, going to prison at such a young age. I didn't realize that George could possibly have an addiction until this came up, and I said, you know, so everybody's not always thrilled about having to go to classes and things like that, but I thought, hey, you know, I'd rather, you know, try and see if it would help, see it'd be beneficial to him, so I definitely wanted to see if that would help. Because people don't always feel comfortable talking to you about things like that. They may not even know that there is a problem or any issues about it.
We got our first check from our distribution from selling records, and we all got our split of the money. So we all, you know, bought a pint of syrup. We was all sipping, you know. We was pulling up, drinking, you know. Slugger was drinking. You know, Slugger was drinking so much, I had to slow down, Slugger. You almost halfway done with your bottle. And we just got this bottle maybe around 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 o'clock, you know. But Slugger like, okay, I'm gonna slow down. You look over there, Slugger still mixing. Slugger trying to figure out which soda he gonna mix up next. He like, I wonder what it tastes like with this. You know, we wasn't bothering nobody, you know, hurt nobody. But little did we know we was about to hurt ourselves. You know, we left that studio that morning maybe about 3 or 4 o'clock. We usually would get some rooms and stay the night, but for some reason we wanted to come back home that night.
During that second case and the period that he went through as far as, you know, getting caught in Waller County, I just kind of thought it was over for him because you got to understand, man, he had been in so much little bitty trouble. Like I said, man, that's all he needed, something extra on his plate when he did catch that case in Waller County. And to be honest with you, I was just like, man, like, I don't know how Slugger's gonna get out of this. I was just kind of worried, like, I couldn't even focus on nothing else because I'm worried about, like, is he gonna get time or he gonna go to jail? Or like, what, like, you know, what goes on? But he kind of, you know, kept moving past that and kind of moved forward with it. But I do think that had an effect on him.
It's not just that I think about the depression and the bad times, but I also think about those times when I started getting into music and when I developed that passion for music. And because it was after I got into all of that trouble, and it was like I came from that dark period and into the sunshine, and music was that ray of light for me. From there, I continued to, mess with the beats. I got better and better at it. I started producing for local rap groups. First rap group that comes to mind that I really got known with was a group called DSD out of Waco. And when I hooked up with them cats, that's when I really began to hone my skills.
I kept hearing people talk about this guy who does beats named Slugger. Slugger this, Slugger that. I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to go check him out, see what he got. We became more than just music partners. We became friends more than that, you know? And we just started hanging around and doing stuff, you know? Shoot, that's what we was doing.
He could hear like a phrase in like a different song and be able to put that same little music phrase into a song of his and kind of like, I really don't know how that goes, but he was just very creative with stuff. Like he could hear that stuff and put it together, and when he put it together, I would just be amazed like all over again. And I always told him, I said, man, dude, you $1 million guy, because I would always hear something and then I'll come back 2 days later and hear something even better than what I heard before. And it constantly stayed like that. He was just like, if you heard something, if you thought that was the pinnacle, he's gonna go right above that.
When we started working on the Stay Down project, I met a lot of known rappers at that time that were a part of the Screwed Up clique. So I met cats like LIL FLIP, Big Pokey, C-Note, Mr. 3-2. We recorded with this cat out of Louisiana called Ice Lord, and Billy Cook, and some more other people. And I just remember when we would record in the studio and bring them in, they were really feeling my beats. And they would always be like, who did that track? And so I would tell them I did it, and we would exchange phone numbers. And before you know it, I started getting a name for myself down there in the Houston hip hop scene. And I remember, my first break down there in Houston was when I was working with LIL FLIP. When I started working with LIL FLIP, me and LIL FLIP, man, we really jailed. There would be times, man, I come down there to Houston and, let him listen to my beats, and, he'll pick out beats. Some of them he used, some of them he didn't use. He had a studio there at his house. And sometimes I'll go there, stay the night, and, we be up, all time on the morning, just vibing in the studio, listening to beats. He'll be recording. He had 2 studios at that time at the house. And so I just remember him bouncing from one studio to the other. And I got a chance to connect with, some cool people down there at that time. So I met this cat that was an in-house producer for LIL FLIP by the name of TJ. He was out of Austin, Texas. And he had shot the documentary about DJ Screw. And then later he wanted to put out a soundtrack to the documentary. And I remember when he approached me about being on the soundtrack, you know, I was pretty stoked. And so he told me what he was looking for, what type of beat. And I just remember, like, I knew I had did something major, but I didn't realize how major it was, because I didn't know that the 2 songs that I produced would be like the signature songs on that soundtrack. And then after that, LIL FLIP started working on his first major project. He had just got signed to Sony. I remember when I had got the call that one of the tracks that I had produced for Flip was going on that album. Man, I was excited.
What it do, what it do? I go by the name Lil Flipper, the freestyle king, the leprechaun. And we about to talk about somebody very special in my life that helped put the building blocks to the steps to where I'm at right now. So the way I met Slugger, I did a feature, the Stay Down record. And instead of just handling the business and just being like, peace out, you know, just let me know, hey, I got beats too. You know what I mean? Because in business, man, while you got somebody's attention, you might as well let them know what else you got going on, because you might not get that opportunity again. And so we was able to bond, and he'll go on the road and got to see how we operate and how we handle business and how we work relentlessly, like hours in the studio. And he always was just kind of in the cut, like when it's time to work, you know how you got some people that be around you and they just holler in your face, holler up under you, just bug you. He wasn't one of them type of people. Slugger would play whatever role needed to be played. Hey man, y'all need somebody to drive, you know, whatever is needed, man, he was down to do it. If we needed to hold a bag or help, it was never no like, I'm Slugger, I'm not doing nothing. You know what I mean? If it ain't by no beat, you know what I'm saying, don't ask me. Nah, it was always a cool vibe, man. And he just always had the confidence in his music and what he had going on, man. And that made the record come about called Tonight, which is on Underground Legend, a record for the ladies. And a lot of fans, they still tell me till this day, they be like, we love that record. And Seville, shout out to Seville, they sung the hook, and the whole vibe of that record was dope. You know what I mean? It was laid back and stuff like that. And what was the other record? The Screw It So Real record on Soldiers United for Cash. And that was another record that Slugger had gave me or whatever, man, and made the beat for and produced. And so we was able to get 2 in and got some plaques on the wall, man. You did a damn great job, man, you know what I'm saying?
I was probably more excited than he was. But one thing that I will have to tell you about Slugger that a lot of people don't know is that you could have put him on a Dr. Dre album and he's the exact same way. You know, he gonna be the same Slugger that he was yesterday than he is today. Even though I was super excited, because I was like, dang, like you dealing with LIL FLIP. That's the way we ball. Like, man, my homeboy got a song on there. But he was just the exact same way. He wasn't like, he was kind of real grounded. Like Slugger ain't no type person where he feel like that he better than everybody. He all crunk and how he got to tell everybody. Like you would have to ask him to know that he had that on there if everybody didn't know. And I just think that that's just one thing that just made him different to me than a lot of other producers and other people, is that he really just, you know, it was basically just work to him. And he wasn't overly excited, but I was.
Hi, my name is Tommy Grand. I'm a platinum record producer and sound engineer. Also movie sound engineer, post-production, audio professional. I've worked with Lucasfilm, Disney, Marvel Studios, all under that umbrella, and worked on quite a few movies. Earlier this year I worked on the new Indiana Jones 5 that's coming. I worked on the last season of The Walking Dead and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I do. But I met Slugger in 2002, maybe it's 2001, when we were both working on the LIL FLIP Underground Legend project. And we quickly began to bond because we shared some of the same value sets.
I later on met CHALIE Boy, and I produced a few tracks for him. And actually, CHALIE Boy did some recording here at my house. When me and CHALIE linked up, it was like me and him had been knowing each other longer than what we did. It was like two old friends reconnecting that had been knowing each other for a long time. He was on one of my gospel rap songs that I did called Take Away the Pain. And we shot the video there in Hearn, Texas. And so to this day, you know, CHALIE Boy, that's still my boy.
What's up with it? My name is CHALIE Boy. CHALIE BOY. CHALIE, not Charlie. I've been doing music since the year 2000. I have a few songs that have made major recordings. I've been on the radio, TikTok, social streaming. Around that process, I've known Slugger. Slugger and I created a few tracks, as well as I featured on a track or two of his. One's called Be There, one's called No Filter. The creative process is not bland, it's not dry. The vibe is not like, I do not care what's going on, just record, get done, and let's move on about it. He cares about every piece of production that he puts together, and I appreciate that because I care about everything that I do. We got together, he let me hear some of his music. I already knew some of the credentials and projects that he had worked on, but it was just like, man, let's just kick it and vibe. We created some music, no filter, media takeout. It's not just about music. The overall thing is chemistry, communication. I've been on a project of his, we shot a video for it, and it's just in his spiritual place and everything, I connected and we cool. It's not just about the music, it's just about the person himself too. He a real 100 cat.
What up, world? It's your big homie DJ Precise hanging out right here at 94.5 The Beat. Bread Camp DJ General. And you already know I got to show love to my man, Minister Slugger, one time, baby. Man, to be honest with you, I really don't remember where I met Slugger at for the first time, but I do remember knowing of him and hearing a lot of good things about him. And like I said, I don't know if it was in the community or through the music as a producer. He's done so much that I heard of him way before. It's like I knew him once I met him, it's like I already knew him. Well, me and my bro, man, my god brother, Big Cadillac Jones, I always wanted to do some positive things with the music, you know, and with the radio being a part of our background. And he was like, man, you should bring Slugger on to do like a segment on your show. I was like, man, I never thought about that. You know, I think that'd be cool if we can get him in, because Slugger was already doing things, you know, and the word on the street was just a positive message that I think everybody needed to hear. So we got a lot of incarcerated listeners who listen to the radio station. So we was like, man, this would be perfect to motivate our incarcerated listeners, you know. Man, it was really important to have Minister Slugger word on the street on the afternoon drive show. That show was like 2 o'clock to 6 p.m. It was like prime time, people at work, you know, traveling back and forth to work. And I knew we could inspire some people with that message, you know, and it was always on point, like every day. You know, sometimes I would call Slugger and be like, Slugger, man, I can't believe, bro, what you said today. It was like so on point. Somebody called, you know, people were writing in. We had a person write in that was about to commit suicide. And that really touched my heart. I knew we was on the right path when we did that, you know, because, I mean, this person was gonna commit suicide. They heard the word on the street and decided, you know, to save their life. Man, that don't get no better than that, no more powerful than that. You know, that's truly God's message.
I answered my calling in the ministry on November the 9th of 2003. And it was right here at this church. Back then it was called Greater Grace Temple. And this is where I got most of my spiritual foundation at. And I just remember at that time, I got tired of wrestling within myself. I got tired of fighting against God and what I knew that God was calling me to do. And I just remember at that time, man, you know, I didn't have any peace. And it was like, the more and more that I resisted against that calling, the more and more things started to go wrong in my life. At that time, you know, I had just produced on the Platinum and Gold album, and my production career things were looking up for me. But then all of a sudden, man, you know, things just started going south. And I had to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And all along, man, I knew what was going on. You know, things in my marriage at that time started going south, and you know, just pretty much anything that I had an interest in or that I was looking to excel in, I wasn't excelling. It's like I just kept hitting this ceiling. So I remember I was at the Hitching Post one night, this club here in Marlin that we call the Hitching Post. And, I'm posted up at the bar, and I'm getting my drink on, and for some reason, man, I just couldn't even get a buzz that particular night. And as I was sitting there at the bar, trying to get my drink on and get my buzz on, this feeling on the inside, just kept tugging at me. And I just remember, just these words came to me: how long are you gonna run from me? And I remember going home that night thinking to myself, I'm tired. This is it, because that tugging on my spirit had been going on for quite some time prior to that night. And that night, after I couldn't even get a buzz, I said, you know what? Enough is enough. I got tired of, hitting this ceiling in my life. Things going good one minute, only to hit this ceiling, and I knew what was going on. And so I told my pastor that morning, I said, I'm tired. I surrender my life to God. And so I got up before the church and announced my calling publicly. And that was November 9th of 2003. And I preached my first sermon on December the 21st of 2003. And so that's why this place right here will always be special to me, because this is where I gave my life to God. And actually, I gave my life to God that night at the club. When I got here to church, I just, reconfirmed or made public that yes, that I had already gave God that night before.
The changes that Slugger went through after he had his first sermon, and I did see subtle changes progressively changing, progressively coming on. The main thing that I seen him change that really made me know that this was for real is when he no longer wanted to do beats anymore. He cut that off cold turkey. No rap beats, none of that LIL FLIP stuff, none of that. He just kind of basically cut it off cold turkey and just said that he was going the way of God. When he did that, when he made that change, then I knew for real Slugger was for real about what he's doing. Cause that's basically like his first love. And he lived and breathed that.
Coming from the lifestyle that I came from, it was a bit scary to now go in this direction that I was going. All I've ever known was the life that I lived. I wasn't ready to stop living that life that I was living.
I remember when Slugger, we was slowing down on doing everything else, and every time I used to go over Slugger's house, he used to just be in there, and he'd start reading some scriptures, and then one day he told me, said, I can't run no more. God's calling me, and I'm gonna answer that call. And he said, God's calling me, so he accepted the call and started ministering. It was a complete change, and Slugger just didn't have the urge to deal with the rap stuff no more, but Slugger started doing gospel rap. He was doing that for a while, and then at one point he said, I'm just gonna stop doing music and focus on my ministry. And I was like, okay, Slugger was serious about that,
1 year he got me to cook, and he fed the first responders in Marlin, the fire people, the police department. He fed all the people that were doing just work around here and never said nothing about it. So, I just think that that's just God led. He would meet out there every other Sunday maybe, and he'd come out there and preach, and he wouldn't care if it was 2 people or if it was 200 people. He gonna get out there and lay God's word.
They're not coming to church, so I gotta take the church to them, which is what he did. And, he went up there and he started preaching on the street, and after a while, they all was ready for Slugger to come. Every time he had, it started small, but, he had those who he needed, He'd have no problem with walking up to a complete stranger and sharing the word of God with them and praying with them, and that's what he's doing. He's spreading the word of God in any form that he can to get the message to you, So I can say I've seen a complete motivation from Slugger being a street dude to a respectable man of God, you know.
Remember some of his first sermons. You know, I've seen the growth in those sermons. So he has definitely come a long way. It made me proud of the fact that I had taught him English. And I am just proud to see that somebody that I've known for such a long time, being able to it's just like a flower, you know, that opens up and it just blooms and you keep on blooming. And the petals that drop, you're feeding others. So it's a proud moment. It really does make you proud. What struck me first that I remember when I started to pay attention was when you had some service you had on the corner there. You know, passing by, I go to Marlon Baptist and there's a spot, I don't know, where a lot of the men in the community gather. And on this occasion, I can't remember whether it was Easter or whether it was some special day, but he and his wife and his family, they had prepared food. And I had fed the crowd. And I remember passing and I said, oh my, he's out on the street. He's starting a ministry, you know. And that struck me as, well, one, he's giving back to the community. And I noticed that he had begun to have an interest or teaching, you know, using his experiences to help others, you know, on the street. And that really, it just stayed right here in my mind. Okay, I'm watching him. And so it was from that point that I began to watch.
Talk on the phone all the time, and even back then, it was evident that that Slugger had a strong calling on his life to minister. It was just evident. I mean, it was really strong.
What I would like people to know about Minister Slugger as a minister and as a man of God is that he's not judgmental. He's been there, you know, he came from where we all come from. You know, he doesn't point the fingers. He's been in the big churches to the small churches to the no churches, you know. To have somebody like that in your corner is real big for people like myself, because I grew up in the church. My grandmother raised me in the church, and, you know, growing up in the church, I went through a lot. It was good and some bad. You know, I was judged in the church, you know, maybe something I had on, or me being a DJ, being at the nightclubs all night, you know, coming to church the next morning, maybe tired, or just getting there, or just knowing everybody knew I was a DJ, so they knew I was at the club. And then you know, to hear the preacher get up and preach and be like, some of y'all was at the club last night, and this, you know, like they really, you know, it kind of tears you down a little bit. So you like, okay, man, I come here to get picked up. Why am I getting tore down? So how about I just stop coming? You know, and then people like Slugger, you know, came into my life to show me that, you know, we have to follow God, not man, at the end of the day. So you can't, you know, don't be mad at the church because of some man or woman, you know, said something or did something negative, you know. And that's what I learned from Slugger. I learned that, you know, to follow God. You know, he was a man of God, and we all looked up to him, but he never took the praise as, hey, I'm Minister Slugger, holier than thou. He never took that. He never was that type of person. It was always follow God, follow your heart, do what you love what you do type situation, what I always preach all the time, you know. And Slugger was one of those people that helped me believe in myself, even when I didn't believe in myself, you know. Even when I had people around me that I helped out and looked out for, and they, you know, trashed my name or talked down, or he was always there for me. Relationships, he was there for me, you know. And I don't talk about that kind of stuff with nobody. You don't see me on Facebook talking about me and my girl going through a problem and none of that, you know. And Slugger was the type of person I could call and talk to about those things. And guess what? To this day, nobody knows about it. You know, nobody knows about it. He's done things for me, him and his wife. They actually donated, you know, they donated some equipment to me. And I appreciate it.
I'm just so happy that who you have become, what you have become to this community, validates that and tells me, yeah, you were right to approach your kids in that manner. Because look at Slugger. look at who he has become.
He is now.
Look how vital he is to this community.
Have I seen the changes? Yes, I have. Better husband, better father. the best pawpaw. Yeah, I've seen a lot of changes in him, and they all good. And his desire to want to do what God has called him to do takes over his entire life.
Hi, I am Lynette Strickland. I am the wife of George Strickland Jr., also known as Minister Slugger. Slugger and I have been married for 17 years. And when I first met Slugger, not Minister Slugger, but Slugger, he was a young man that was enjoying life, and I was just enjoying his company. Never thought in a million years that he would be in the position that he is now, or that I would be a minister's wife. Slugger has come a long way. And when I say a long way, I mean his younger years, Slugger loved the women, and the women loved him.
On the cool, he was a ladies' man, but he wasn't just that ladies' man that everybody just kind of knew about right then. But he would always tell me that, hey, man, you know, so-and-so tried to, you know, say something to me or holler at me, and I was looking like, man, nah, that can't be. So then, you know, you go on and, you know, you find out that a lot of upperclassmen liked him. And I'm sitting over here looking like, who the hell like me? He getting all the women. God dang, I'm DJing just like he DJing.
But by the grace of God changing him, Slugger and I became man and wife. And just his whole journey serving the Lord has just been awesome. I mean, this is the only thing that has motivated him besides the love of music that he had. And he's always been a go-getter. He's always known what he's wanted out of life. And when the Lord turned him around from the music aspect of life and turned him into the man of God that he is now, he's just been a great guy.
My wife has truly been there for me. Y'all see Minister Slugger, but she knows Slugger.
I'm not just saying that because he is my husband, it's because I've seen the change in him.
I'd like to add, if you don't mind, before we began, Mrs. Wyman asked you, you know, what motivated you to do this? And you explained, you know, that you thought it was the time, it was something that was weighing heavily on you, and it was the time to move. My thought is this: in these changing times, we are not, as a church, you know, I don't think, because when you go to the various churches, you find today that most of them are half empty, more than half empty, and we are not reaching, you know, the people. And I'm thinking that you're knowing that this is the time, you're the man for the time right now. And that's what my thought is that what you're doing is what we need to reach the multitude of people. I mean, that's, something has to, you know, it's just like you got a crowd of people, a crowd of children walking around in a hopeless state. You know,
And our old techniques don't
this,
reach them.
They don't. Through the years, you've proved yourself to be a person that we can believe in. And kids can identify with you, knowing that, because I'm sure that there are a lot of kids walking around hurting. And they just don't know how to express that hurt, what to do. So I think you're the man we need for the time. And I hope you follow through with it. And I'm pretty sure it'll be a blessing not only to you, but to the community as a whole.
If God called him to do something, he gonna do it. He has a desire to want to be right and do right under God's standard. Yeah, I felt like that he would be in ministry this long, because this is the only thing that he's ever grabbed a hold to and held on to. If you know Slugger, he'll grab onto something and drop it like a hot potato, but this is something that he latched onto. And I think that it grabbed him first, and then he grabbed it. And then over time, you know, you progressively see his change. I've seen him when he was in the trenches, and I've seen him when he was on Mount Everest. I'm proud of him. And you know, this somebody that you could see in a store and tell them that you got a problem, and he gonna put his grocery bag down and pray for you. So I say, yeah, I can see him being there that long, and he has a desire to want to be right and do right.
But you know, for the most part, I can't complain. Life is good. It's not so much as that everything is all good, but everything is all God now, and that's what makes it all good. Most people say that they would go back in their life and change this, and this if they could. In retrospect, I wouldn't change a thing in my life. Everything that I've been through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it made me who I am today. Without that stuff, I wouldn't have a message. It was through my mess that God birthed a message in me that I didn't know that was gonna come out of me. It was through the dirt and through the struggle that if I hadn't went through that dirt and that struggle, I wouldn't know how to help others through their dirt and their struggle. I wouldn't be able to relate to them. And that's why it was important to me to tell my story and to be transparent about some parts of my life so that people out there would know that those of us who are now walking this Christian walk, man, we come from some dirty places. We didn't come from no clean places. And the product that you see now, it came from dirt. It came from, as we would say, you know, getting it out the mud. And so I know what it's like to be in the mud. And so my life's purpose now is to help others, man, with a message of hope, to help bring others out of darkness into light. One of the reasons why I'm so passionate about preaching the gospel, helping others, is because I remember that I was once in that dark place. And I remember that it was people that helped me come out of that dark place, whether it was my mama praying for me, my grandmother praying for me, my teachers helping me, or just people along the way that God put in my path that encouraged me along the way, that helped steer me in the right direction. I quit a lot of things in my life, whether it would be jobs, whether it would be relationships, from even, you know, getting a divorce. But the one thing that I've stuck with and I've never thought about quitting, and that's my calling and my commitment to God. It was something that I ran from at first that I didn't want to do, but now it's something that I enjoy doing. In the marriage vows, it says, "To death do us part." And that's how I feel about my ministry. It's till death do us part. I dedicate my life story to my parents, George Strickland Sr. and the late Doris Strickland. I wouldn't be who I am without God and without them. To my father, for being such a great provider. Because of your sacrifice to work and be away from home for extended periods of time, afforded me and my sisters to have a life that many didn't experience growing up. Because of your work ethic, I can't say that I grew up in the struggle. It was only after I moved out that I experienced what struggle was. To my mother, I thank God she never gave up on me. Her love and her perseverance wouldn't believe anything other than my son would be something great, regardless of how things looked when I was at my worst. She invested in me both financially and spiritually, but also with her wisdom. She believed in me when no one else did. She believed in me when some thought she was stupid or being naive for supporting me, despite the fact that I was troubled at that time. I wouldn't have accomplished what I did musically without her support. As a matter of fact, there are many things that I wouldn't have accomplished without her support. When I outgrew my Casio keyboard and needed something more professional, she took a leap of faith and invested in a Korg Trinity keyboard, and the rest is history. On April 19, 2020, my mother left this earth. One of the most challenging things I've had to do thus far in ministry was to stand over her casket and deliver her eulogy and lead my family through such a sad time. My strength and my anointing doesn't come from what I've accomplished, but from what I've suffered. It wasn't just the peaks in my life that made me who I am, but it was the valleys. Somehow, some way, God took the good, the bad, and the ugly parts of my life and made them work together for his purpose. And he took what the devil used to work against me, and he made it work in my favor.